Hey there, you awesome people. I hope your day has been nothing short of fantastic. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Izuku used to be quirkless, but that all changed when he sunk his teeth into an unusual fruit, granting him the power to stretch his body like rubber. With this newfound ability, he's on a quest to become the ultimate hero. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you're totally vibing with this what if scenario, drop me a comment and let your thoughts be known. And while you're at it, don't miss out on other mind-blowing what ifs on this channel. Alright, without further ado, let's dive straight into this video. A few weeks had passed since what historians dubbed the PLF Rebellion. Reconstruction of both Jakku City as well as forest at the Gunga mountain range were well underway. Luckily, with careful applications of quirks, it took what would have been 10 years in a normal world to reconstruct in just those few months. Heroes from other countries came to aid in the efforts as well. Though Star and Stripe was ordered to come back immediately, she ignored the orders to at least help jump-start the reconstruction efforts. Though she kept her promise to her bros who risked their own careers to escort her to Japan to quality sushi and beer before finally heading back to the US. As for the students, they were quickly sent back to school to finish up their school year. Even though they were willing to help with the reconstruction efforts, the teachers assured them that they could handle it, as well as the other pro-heroes. The last remnants of the PLF had been arrested and quickly sentenced to separate prisons. As for the casualty rate for the hero side, it was rather low. Only those at the Jakku hospital that had been unable to escape Shigaraki's first use of decay had died. The Gunga mountain raid luckily suffered no casualties, with only minor to major injuries, thanks to Izuku's sudden intervention by knocking out the majority of PLF members with Conqueror's Haki, as well as helping arrest Gigantomachia. It also helped that Hawks disabled twice from interfering, and by strange luck, caught Suki seducing Himiko by pure accident that influenced her actions to not mercilessly go on a killing spree. And now, welcoming our graduating seniors of UA High, announced Nezu, standing behind a podium as the audience began to applaud loudly. Luckily, the war hadn't been dragged out, otherwise such a ceremony would have been delayed for an indeterminate amount of time, until the matter had been settled. Of course, being UA, it was a bit over the top, especially with President Mick manning the DJ station. The graduates were wildly cheering, the newly minted seniors were getting used to the whole situation, having seen it last year, and the upcoming second years were slightly shocked at the whole situation. Izuku sat in the crowd, applauding with the rest of the students, watching Mario and the other graduating seniors walk up to the podium to receive their diplomas. There had been tears of sadness when Nejire received her diploma, signifying her departure from UA being the top school idol of the school. It was heartbreaking for all the fans, both male and female, to see her leave. Izuku clapped especially hard when Melissa stood up to receive her diploma. Midnight sat in the crowd, watching the graduation ceremony with newfound respect for it. She had seen it year after year, and the excitement for it died down slowly throughout the years, though she didn't show it. Now, after almost facing certain death, or worse, she couldn't help but appreciate many things in life that she took for granted. Her eyes couldn't help but track over to where Izuku was, though. Izuku seemed to notice her gaze and looked back at her, making eye contact. Taking this chance, Midnight blew a kiss to Izuku, giving him a sultry look with the promise of a wild time, should he ever choose to accept her invitation. She giggled when she saw Chako and the others giving her the evil eyes. Midnight wasn't planning on stealing Izuku from them. Teasing them, perhaps a little fun and some guidance from yours truly. And she had also heard from Grapevine about 3 mature cats interested in Izuku as well. Though she didn't like to bring her age to the matter, it was different if some women joined in on the fun. The diplomas had been handed to the student, and saying the farewell address was Mirio Tagata himself, having been named the graduating representative. I'm grateful for everyone who managed to open up some space in their busy schedule to come here today, started Mirio, making most of the crowd fall to the ground with their chairs, due to the fact that Mirio hadn't started his speech with a joke. A hero's battle is often turning a minus back to 0, continued Mirio with a serious tone. We were lucky that we barely managed to do that. If not, then perhaps even if we won later on, it wouldn't be a 0 in the aftermath. But even so, we all still strive to make this world a better place. It doesn't matter what course you're in, everyone can do something. These 3 years were to prepare us for what lies ahead. Though the goal hasn't been reached today, I believe in the future, in a world of plus, where everyone can smile, will be our finishing line. For a world without humor isn't a future at all. Mirio took a deep breath as he snapped his finger. Today's the day we start our path. And to our underclassmen, I only have 2 words to say. Mirio suddenly activated his quirk, sending him flying up into the air, though thankfully dressed in his costume underneath his school clothes. Behind him, the wall shattered as Bibimi's invention, which she had used during the pageant that Mirio borrowed with full permission, came flying out. "See ya," roared Mirio as the crowd cheered. "He's lucky that we live in an age where we can use such resources for entertainment," said Melissa with a small huff. After the ceremonies came the goodbyes, as each graduate would be walking their own paths. Underclassmen came to visit them to wish them luck or other various purposes. Izuku, Achako, Momo, Tsuyu, and Itsuka went to see Melissa, who was preparing a trip back home to Island. "How's your father?" asked Izuku as they helped Melissa pack up her items. "I hope he didn't get in any trouble for overextending his reach," said Momo with concern. "It was interesting," admitted Melissa. "He did break the rules by sending drones to help Uncle Might, but considering the situation, he was justified. But he still did break his probation, even if All Might and Star and Stripe vouched for him. So he was demoted to the lowest position, as a janitor. My father didn't complain, saying that he knew what the consequences were. Yet as he went into his first day as a janitor, he barely even began scrubbing when someone high up was impressed by his work ethic and promoted him as a consultant again, and even with a reduction on his probation. So bureaucracy to make him seem like he was punished," deadpanned Itsuka. "Yay," said Melissa sheepishly. "I hope you guys don't mind that I'm going back for a bit." "Of course not," said Achako. "Family is important after all." "Kiro, that's true. Well, the new semester starts for us soon. I'm going back to spend some time with my family," nodded Tsuyu. "What do you plan to do for the future?" asked Momo. "Work in Island? Or head to university?" "I have something planned," smirked Melissa. "Don't worry about me. You should all focus on your own studies." A knock on the door could be heard before Nejire popped her head inside, looking at Melissa. "Melissa, are you going to come to the party?" asked Nejire. "You're still invited, even if you were only here for a semester." Nejire glanced around, noting Izuku and the others. "Oh, were you planning to have a private party?" "That's cool. Mirio, Yayu, Tamamaki, and I are going to a hotel later to rent a single room together, so we can." Her words were interrupted by Yayu, who quickly put her hands on Nejire's mouth, muffling her words. "You don't need to broadcast it to everyone," hissed Yayu in embarrassment. "Why?" asked Nejire as she managed to pull Yayu's hands off. "Aren't we going in there to have lots of fun? We were planning to even expand the group. You liked it when Tamaki used his quirk too." Yayu's face turned red before pulling Nejire away quickly before she could say anything else, though not before reminding Melissa she was welcome to the party. The group could only blink before they could process what Nejire said. "I guess there was more than the rumors suggested," muttered Melissa quietly. They quickly finished packing everything, moving it to the truck that had been rented. Soon, they were met with an empty room. "I guess we'll see you again soon?" asked Izuku, only to be surprised when Itsuka locked the door. It magnified when Melissa tossed an object into the room, which quickly transformed into a rather huge bed that would have taken the whole room, had they not just emptied it out. Izuku took a look to see a rather determined and lustful look on his girlfriend's faces. "We're not going anywhere," stated Itsuka as the girls began to slowly strip. "We've been too busy with everything else," chimed Chako as she unbuttoned her shirt. "Not to mention that you decided to leave right after winter vacation, leaving us alone for months without even telling us," stated Momo as she removed her skirt. "No warm snuggles to get through the cold season, Kiro," said Tsuyu as she tossed her blazer to the side. "Now it's the end of the year, and I won't get to see you as often," finished Melissa as she dropped her shirt to the floor, revealing her undergarments. "Now then, I believe you should know what to do to beg for our forgiveness." Izuku slightly gulped, but his body betrayed him as it reacted to everything he was seeing. He was quickly divesting himself of his clothes to match their state. A few days later, Izuku was walking with Toshinori down a long metal hallway, accompanied by prison guards. They soon came across a crossroad, and with a nod to each other, went their separate ways, with Izuku going left while Toshinori went right. The duo were currently at Tartarus, both visiting prisoners. Izuku cleared his throat for a second before asking, "How has he been behaving?" One of them took a moment to gather his thoughts before replying, quietly. "So far he hasn't made any commotions." "Still think he should have been harsher," muttered another guard. "It's not our call," said the other. "Still, to have your life completely controlled by an insane control freak is something to consider. Even if he did kill others, he's at least complying with his punishment." Every single death that he caused lies in the hand of the megalomaniac and that doctor. The guard merely huffed before turning to Izuku, "You only get 10 minutes. Izuku nodded as he entered a room that was separated by a thick bulletproof glass, complete with laser grid defense system. Sitting at the opposite side was Tenko, who had been waiting for him. His shaggy hair had been shaved to buzz cut, but his skin seemed to be doing better. The two picked up the phone on their side that would allow them to talk to each other. "How are you doing?" asked Izuku. "Can't complain," replied Tenko. "Thought I'd be dead or strapped into a straitjacket. But it looks like you heroes came through." "All might vouch for you," started Izuku, only for Tenko to raise his hand. "I know. But you also vouched for me, and managed to convince the American hero to do the same." "That's the only reason I'm not dead," said Tenko. Silence remained between the two before Izuku chimed in. "I heard about your sentence." "Lifetime with no parole," shrugged Tenko. "Doesn't matter. I could care less about the outside world. Long as that asshole and his people can't get me, then I'm good. Plus, the amenities that I get are enough. Don't need anything else." Inside Tenko's cell was an actual computer station for his gaming needs, as well as some books, courtesy of Toshinori, who still felt guilty about allowing his master's grandson to fall into All for One's hands. "As long as you keep your promise and do your job in making a better future, then I'm good," said Tenko. Izuku nodded, the two talking for a little more before time was up. As Izuku left, he saw Tenko take a seat in a half-lotus pose for meditation before floating up into the air. It was Nana's last gift to Tenko after he destroyed Decay and All for One. A severely weakened version of float that barely lifted Tenko 2 feet in the air. But it was enough for Tenko to enjoy himself without being able to threaten anyone. As well as the plus side that he couldn't accidentally destroy his controllers now via his old quirk. Toshinori stood outside where All for One sat. Or rather, merely existed now. The feedback from Izuku's attack as well as Tenko snapping the connection, destroying the core that made All for One, had caused the man to become comatose. The only question now was what to do to the man. In the end, a decision was made by not only Nezu and the HPSC, but the United Nations Security Council. Speaking of the HPSC, they had tried to ambush Redestro, only to fail as the copy of him had been sent into their office, but they couldn't subdue him. It was pure luck that with twice losing his quirk that Madam President was in a medical coma. Thus granting Kaina freedom for a while longer, as she was the only one who knew Kaina was no longer in Tartarus, and thus couldn't recall her back. Not that Nezu had ever planned to let that happen, but it was always an insurance policy he kept just in case. "How the mighty has fallen," sneered Toshinori as he gazed at All for One. "Your dark hold over Japan for 2 centuries has finally come to an end. And the best part? People will move on, and you'll be forgotten soon enough." Toshinori let out a small whoop before closing his eyes. All the past wielders of One for All were now gone from One for All, leaving just him and Izuku. Though sad that he would no longer be able to speak to his mentor, he was satisfied that the final will and goal of One for All had been reached. Izuku was to be the last wielder of One for All anyways. It was clear to him that One for All had reached singularity, and passing it to even another quirkless person, which was shrinking as the years went by, would be dangerous. Though he did wonder if a portion of the power the quirk contained would be passed down to descendants. The first did mention how it reacted differently with Izuku's devil fruit within him. Shelving those thoughts away, Toshinori decided to take the final steps that he had begged everybody to let him do it. Toshinori pulled the plug on All for One's life support, leaving him to fend for himself. Toshinori watched the monitor that was tracking All for One's vitals, watching it slowly fade away until it was gone with a blip. Of course, that wasn't enough. They had the body cremated into ashes, then vaporized the ashes just in case, caught the vapor into a steel case, and then yeeted the case into space, hopefully into the sun. Just in case All for One had some bullshit quirk that let him live through all that. They even hired an exorcist to cleanse the room. Another location. Hawks was visiting a special prison, this one different from Tartarus. This prison also served as a psychiatric hospital for villains deemed redeemable to society. Not only that, but it boasted top-of-the-line medical treatments, along with competent psychiatrists and quirk life counselors. Usually a place where only the HSPC chose which villain could fall into their own agenda. But since Madam was in a coma, and most of the top brass that had been attending the meeting to trap Redestro all too injured to lead, it fell on Yakumura Mera to serve as acting president. It was here that Hawks drew some strings to get 2 villains into it, though his goal was to make sure they never fell into the HSPC hands. "How are you feeling, buddy?" asked Hawks as he placed some chicken wings onto a table, where a hand quickly snatched one. Not bad. Good food said twice. Screw you, I've had better wings. Twice, Jin was laying on the hospital bed with a half mask on his head, allowing him to eat freely. You'll have to tell me where you got them then, chuckled Hawks, always looking out for something better. Are the voices still ringing? It's still there, but it's slowly. Can't say it's fading away. Rather it feels like they're melding together, admitted Jin, like just one continuous thought instead of two dynamic ones. That's an improvement, right? Asked Hawks. Once you get that settled, we can get your quirk back. About that, hummed Jin, I'm not sure I want it back. Really? Why? Asked Hawks curiously. It's that are being quirkless. And not to bag on them, but it is a rather small population with bias against them. Jin tilted his head side to side for a second. True, but not having conflicting thoughts all the time with splitting headaches and doubts about myself feels much better. Plus you promised you'd help me. Well, whatever your decision is, I'm with you every step, said Hawks, reiterating his promise. Oh, and where's Toga-chan? Asked Jin. In another room at this hospital, like I promised, said Hawks. She's currently entertaining another visitor right now, in fact. Jin took a second to process that before gasping, looking at Hawks, who nodded, before squealing in excitement. Himiko laid on the bed, wrapped up in bandages. The damages she had received from being skewered by All for One had not been light. Still, she was recovering remarkably well, as she had managed to maneuver her body enough to avoid being stabbed in vital areas. Sitting next to her bed was not only Katsuki Bakugo, but also his parents, Mitsuki and Masaru. The parents had returned from their trip, worried about their son. They had been shocked, amused, and bewildered that their trip to Hawaii had been planned out by Himiko herself in order to protect them. The two had finally been told the whole story between her and Katsuki. Himiko laid there, nervous at their judgment when Mitsuki's next action and words shocked her. So you're the girl that Katsuki's attracted to? Laughed Mitsuki as she punched Katsuki's head from behind, making him bow on impact, and here I thought he'd never find a girl. What the hell you old hag? Roared Katsuki, only to get bonked on the head once more. Don't call me that, especially in front of your girl. Roared Mitsuki while Masaru tried to placate her. Himiko could only stare in shock at how they were acting. Seeing Katsuki, she imagined that he was someone who was raised in a perfect family, like her own parents like to pretend. Seeing a mother knocking on her kid's head was not something she could imagine seeing. Still, thank you for saving my son, said Mitsuki as she calmed down, giving Himiko a bow, followed by Masaru. A second later, Mitsuki, without even looking, grabbed Katsuki's head, forcing him to bow as well. It's alright, mumbled Himiko, I didn't really save him because it was the right thing to do. I just wanted to be the one to stab him. While Masaru looked concerned, Mitsuki bellowed out a laugh before replying, a girl that can stand up to my boy is certainly one to keep. Can't let him just walk over his wife like some sort of rug, she's gotta have some fire. Masaru could only sigh before looking at Himiko. Coincidentally, Hawks gave us all the information he could gather about your situation. It's sad to see someone so young to be mistreated, and even worse when your situation could have been prevented, had your parents used an ounce of common sense. Himiko winced, trying to hide her feelings about the matter, but Masaru gently put his hand on hers. Surprisingly, Himiko didn't try to pull away, but rather felt some sort of comfort. I think you misunderstood what I meant, said Masaru gently. Your parents tried to make you seem normal by denying your basic needs. Consuming blood is not a sin. It is a basic need for you. Hawks had gathered information about you from a lot of places, including from the Meta Liberation Army database. The quirk counselor your parents found was a quack, someone not even licensed to do so. Deku would have been able to figure out what to do in a glance back at elementary school, scoffed Katsuki. When you first exhibited interest in blood, it was just your basic biology telling you needed to consume it, explained Masaru. I've seen the various diets that people have to eat to live. One includes eating rodents. You me, coughed Mitsuki loudly. The point is, continued Masaru forcefully, your basic needs were denied to you in their foolish attempt to seem normal. I'm sure as a dutiful daughter, you tried to follow what they wanted, but you hit a breaking point. Red-colored food, tomato juice, anything resembling the color blood was probably your preference due to its visual appearance. I always choose pomegranate ice cream, muttered Himiko. Masaru nodded. From the information Hawks got from Curious, she noted you only snapped when you witnessed a fight where you saw blood from a fight. Sato, my first crush, said Himiko, only for Masaru to shake his head. No? Maybe you had feelings about the boy himself, but you never really noticed him until after you saw his blood, right? theorized Masaru, getting a nod in return. No doubt your parents never went over sexual education through your puberty, thinking it was freakish. Your need for blood, along with puberty, made you confused about what was what. Why would you think that? Asked Himiko cautiously. Katsuki snorted before replying. Due to their damn interest in you, they decided to see who raised you. And damn, your parents are fucking idiots. Probably the same level as Auntie Inko's ex-husband in terms of scum. Rarely have I seen my parents literally kick ass. Masaru coughed. We merely had a polite conversation that elevated into a slight argument. Himiko blinked before Katsuki snorted once more, suddenly whipped out his phone and pulled up some photos. There, Himiko saw on Katsuki's screen a photo of her father plastered into a wall with a suspicious palm print the size of Masaru's hand. Another photo slides across to reveal Mitsuki holding a foldable chair from somewhere, taking a swing at Himiko's mother, who was screaming in fear. Right? Polite, grinned Katsuki, while the two parents slightly blushed. It had been a very rare moment that both parents lost control of their tempers when meeting the Togas. It was only due to Hawks, who had been accompanying them, that it didn't go any further. Katsuki had been no help, more interested in taking photos of his parents kicking ass. Anyways, coughed Masaru, here, at least, you'll get a good education and someone to walk you through the fine details of the birds and the bees. Himiko shuffled in her bed, uncomfortable about that fact. Mitsuki instantly saw it and asked, would you like me to go over that with you? Yes, whispered Himiko, not knowing why she was trusting Mitsuki more than anybody else. Alright, smiled Mitsuki as she plopped herself next to Himiko, time for you boys to go out now. Wait now? Questioned Himiko with a slight blush. Of course, otherwise it'd be hard to see you again, said Mitsuki, might as well get this over with. With another wave of her arms, she shooed them away, leaving the girls alone. So then, it looks like we have a lot to cover, smiled Mitsuki. Himiko looked at Mitsuki in confusion before asking, why? Why do you trust me? You know that I'm a freak. I'm not normal. I can't act like those perfect housewives who stay at home and cook and clean and listen to their husband and all that. Here, Mitsuki gave a loud laugh, causing Himiko to slightly freak out a little. My boy needs a girl that can stand up to him as equals, not some pussy little shit, said Mitsuki. His ego gets too big, he needs someone who can pull him back down to earth every now and then. And my tendency to stab, whispered Himiko. A little worrying, but as long as you don't go too far, you'll be fine, admitted Mitsuki. Plus, like my husband said, you probably have that urge because you needed blood. As long as you get fed, it should go away. The two began to have a heart-to-heart discussion, with Himiko slowly responding more actively to Mitsuki. The image of a perfect family that her mother had tried to force on Himiko shattered violently. Himiko was aware of the birds and bees, but hearing Mitsuki's version made it clear. Though she could have gone without the details when she began bragging about how Masaru always gave her explosive orgasms, which was probably why Katsuki had been born with an explosion quirk. The subject quickly changed to the future, to which Himiko grimaced. Honestly, she had no idea what she could do besides being a villain with her skillset. Mitsuki, however, saw a broader picture. You could always be an actress, said Mitsuki, causing Himiko to raise her eyebrows. My brat says that you can read expressions and act like someone else easily, said Mitsuki. That's talent there you can use. I know some pro heroines want to be actresses, but as soon as they step on stage, they forget their lines or can't even act. If you can transform into them but play a completely different role that's required, you'd have plenty of business as you drum up their prestige. Or you can show them how it should be done, costume and all. Sometimes, just explaining it doesn't work. Visual performance of how it should be done helps a lot. You could also go into modeling with me. You can transform into any model with the dress they're supposed to wear, and let them see how it looks from an outside perspective. I know one dress that I liked from the front view, but the back view was horrible. I couldn't tell until I saw a mirror, and it's always harder to see what you look from behind. And if all else fails, chuckled Mitsuki, you could always be an amateur porn cosplayer. Himiko burned bright red while also confused at this last statement. Think about it. You'll always have people always going gaga over pro heroines or pro heroes. I know there are people who cosplay as Midnight or Maruko while strip-teasing their fans. But nothing beats the real thing, right? And then there's you, who can transform into any popular hero perfectly, without a flaw, and with their measurements. I don't need to go on, do I? Himiko shook her head, her face bright red as Katsuki and Masaru entered the room, too happy to have a chance to change the subject. The Bakugos had to leave as visiting hours were over. However, before they left, Katsuki stuck his arm out in front of Himiko. It's going to be a while. Don't want you starving. So go ahead and drink, stated Katsuki. Himiko's eyes slightly watered as she saw her toy friend. She wasn't sure, but she soon opened her mouth before biting down, her canines piercing through skin. Blood flowed into her mouth, where she gratefully drank the life-giving water. She made sure to control herself, stopping when she felt satiated enough, not gorging herself like she did before. She subconsciously licked her tongue over the holes her canines made, never realizing that by doing so, it helped clot the holes. Katsuki didn't even flinch, and when she was done, he merely wrapped some bandages over it. As they left, Katsuki turned his head back once more. Watch me as I become the top hero, said Katsuki, then I'll be back for you. So you better recover fast. Himiko nodded as she laid back down onto her bed. For once, in her shitty life, things were looking better. Endeavor sat in a prison different from Tartarus, but still a prison for high-profile prisoners. Across from him was his son, Toya, who was currently dressed in orange garbs. So, the high and mighty Endeavor deems me worthy of a visit, sneered Toya. How's your reputation? The video that you tried to spread was intercepted, said Endeavor, causing Toya to drop his sneer in shock. The villain skeptic, the one you thought would do the job, was unable to spread it out. TCH, typical, scoffed Toya. He kept bragging about how he's the best, only to fail. To be fair, he does know what he's doing, said Endeavor. Unfortunately, we had someone better who's been apparently running circles around him for ages. So what now? Mocked Toya. You get to keep your pristine reputation while you lock me up forever. Hoping that I'll go away. The truth will never be buried forever, Endeavor. Someday, I'll get out here and expose you for who you really are. I've leaked the video for everybody to see, interrupted Endeavor, causing Toya to stop in shock. Excuse me, blinked Toya. I watched the video, and everything you said was true, said Endeavor, so I decided to release it, just not while we were fighting against All for One. As of now, my reputation is ruined, just like you wished. I've retired from being a pro hero, and have already passed my agency to Burnin. I originally asked to be jailed near you, but the others thought it would be better if I was free, to assist in disasters if needed. You've been watching me every day, but I failed to do the same. But from now on, I'll come every day. So let's talk. Toya could barely comprehend everything that Endeavor had just told him, so he decided to pivot to another subject. What about Mom? Spat out Toya, along with Fayumi and Natsu. Your siblings know the truth, said Endeavor. As for your mother, I've left it in their hands whether she should know the truth. I've also given her the divorce papers as well. She'll get the house and the kids, as well as most of my assets. I'll have just enough to live off by. I alone am guilty of everything, and will bear this burden. The door behind Endeavor suddenly opened as Shoto entered. He wasn't alone though. Behind him entered Fayumi, Natsu, and to both Endeavor and Toya's shock, Ray. Ray? What are you doing here? Stammered Endeavor, shocked to see his wife out and actually meeting them here. Are you alright? No, I'm not alright. But that's exactly why I'm here. Fixing what should have been fixed, said Ray firmly as she strode in. We've been running away from all these problems that should have been fixed years ago. Ray sat down firmly next to Endeavor, looking straight at Toya. You were right. I am guilty for not taking action as well. I was too tired, too afraid. Not anymore. We can't waste our time always looking for what ifs in the past. We can only face what has happened in the past, live in the present to take responsibility, and continue working for a better future. Toya and Endeavor both looked at Ray in shock at the current matriarch of the Todoroki family, unable to process her current state. Ray, are you the woman I married? Said Endeavor, still in shock. TCH. Did you get that from some self-help today? Mocked Toya. Yes, said Ray bluntly, causing Toya to cough at the blunt admission. Being in the hospital for about a decade with very few visitors has allowed me plenty of time for introspection, as well as some help from the doctors and psychiatrists. Though it wasn't until recently that they began to sink in, especially when the son whom I've personally harmed physically came back to see me and called me mom once more. He's made some dear friends, and he's become the hero who's made this meeting possible for us. Ray glanced over to Enji. Our son has always wanted you to see him. Now's your chance to truly see him. And I'll be with you every step to make sure you don't run away like you did in the past, throwing yourself into the field just to distract yourself. We also hold some responsibilities as well, said Fayumi. I saw how fractured our family had become, but I became too scared to do anything, and tried to just keep up appearances. If I only had the guts to do what was right, growled Natsu, shooting Endeavor an angry glare. Maybe if I punched Dad, or maybe I did my duties as a younger brother to calm you down, then this whole incident might have not happened. We probably could have all sat down and enjoyed talking shit about you. Endeavor took all the criticism with grace, knowing it was true. It was his burden to bear, and he would gladly do so. Throw everything at me, said Endeavor, all your hatred, your sadness, anything. I deserve it, and will accept it all. Everything, so we can talk once more. I'll look at you this time, just like you wanted. I'll carry the burden as well, said Ray. I'm just as much responsible for this as well. Us too, chimed both siblings. Toya started to get lightheaded, unable to process everything. His vision began to flicker before the warden came in to warn them that visiting hours would be over soon, and that Toya needed treatment for his burns, something that Endeavor insisted on paying for. Just one more question, said Shoto, inserting himself into the conversation before looking at Toya. What's your favorite food, Toyanai? Soba, replied Toya as he turned away, shadows covering his face. Then maybe we'll have lunch together with Soba, said Shoto as he turned to leave with the rest of the family. It would be a long and hellish path before they could even remotely come together as a family, but it was a step forward. One Endeavor intended to take without shortcuts, with Ray by his side to make sure he didn't stray. Gran Torino sat on his abutin, drinking some tea before placing it onto a kotatsu. Sitting across from him was Rikai, also enjoying some tea. So, I heard that I have you to thank for not letting Tenko put a hole in my stomach, said Gran Torino. You would need help from what you were hinting at, said Rikai as she put her tea down, grabbing a taiyaki from the middle of the kotatsu. Couldn't let my boy get murdered. Gran Torino coughed at that, but quickly regained composure before asking, so who was that psychic that saved me? And apparently, he had friends also help out in the city. My oldest disciple and his friends, replied Rikai. They're not heroes, though. Not exactly vigilantes either, especially the half-pint. They do work in the shadows, though, with some of the more mysterious cases. That's all I can say about them. Gran Torino nodded, not even attempting to push for more. He owed his life to them, and he would respect those boundaries. Vernon Agency. Vernon sneezed as she looked around her new office. What was once Endeavor's was now officially hers as he had passed it down to her. Feels weird to be in this seat, murmured Burning, remembering the time she would come into this office to report to Endeavor. Now she sat on the other side of the desk. The video that Toya made was damning, but Endeavor had it released to the public anyways, stating his apologies, and that he would take responsibility for all the murders his son had committed. Truthfully, it could have been sealed away, but Endeavor didn't want to hide the truth anymore. This did impact the agency as quite a few pro-heroes and sidekicks quit, along with a good chunk of the auxiliary staff. However, Vernon was nothing but determined to see it through. She had plans already, and backup plans should those fail. In the meantime, while she had a little time, she looked up details about a particular person. He was certainly hard to find, but she managed to find his name. You won't escape me this time, smirked Vernon, looking at the photo of the man who had saved her during the raid. Hidden location. The said man shivered as he felt a chill crawl up his spine. Yo, you alright? Asked Rikai's oldest disciple. That's a rather unfamiliar feeling, replied the pretty boy. Let's go. Koma is expecting us. The group left, walking into a forest to vanish from sight. Yue hi. So what now? Asked Kaina as she sat in Nezu's office, looking directly at the principal. I've done my duty, protecting Izuku Midoriya. The threat is gone. Am I going back to Tartarus? And why would I do that? Asked Nezu in interest as he sipped his tea. You've done your part splendidly. Why not enjoy your freedom outside? You have a new identity that I've crafted for you, and the Japanese government has accepted it in lieu of what you've done. You can witness what you helped create. It's been too long. I'm not used to the outside world. I can't even remember how to do the basic stuff, doing laundry and all that, sighed Kaina. It'd be a hard transition. In that case, how about working here? Offered Nezu, pulling out a contract. All your basic needs will be taken care of until you can reintegrate yourself into society properly. We could use you as another heroics teacher, specializing in scouting missions, perhaps. Tashinori is staying, but another experienced person such as yourself would be a fine addition. Kaina took a sip of her tea, as if considering the offer, when Nezu smiled and slid over another contract. And this one is to allow your disciple, Bellows, into UA Hero course as a student, second year. Probably with two so as to be with someone familiar, smirked Nezu, along with a new official identity for her here. Kaina sighed, knowing this was an offer she couldn't refuse. She had planned to leverage this, but she should have known that Nezu would have predicted this already. Fine, but just until I can get it together again, said Kaina. In the meantime, you'll be footing my bills for a bit longer. But of course, nodded Nezu. Izuku and Toshinori left Tartarus together, walking to Toshinori's car. Did you settle it? Asked Izuku. Yep, nodded Toshinori as he opened the door. This truly is the end of this long battle. All for one is no more. And one for all, said Izuku slowly, only for Toshinori to chuckle. Don't be like that, said Toshinori. Passing on the mantle of one for all was a heavy choice, one that I'm glad you no longer need to bear. Plus, from what the past users said, it had hit singularity with you, so passing it down was no longer an option. One for all's sole purpose was accomplished by you. And with that, hopefully we will never need it once more. Izuku nodded as he sat in the car, his eyes looking out the window. Hey, said Toshinori, gently rubbing Izuku's head, you did what the past predecessors couldn't do. Defeat All for One and stop him from spreading his evil. The predecessors can now rest in peace at what you've accomplished. Izuku nodded, not trusting his mouth for now. He missed their voices and presence, even if it had only been 2 years now. It was only in the last few months that he could really communicate with them as well. And now, they were gone, having sacrificed their lives to ensure Izuku and the others could escape safely. Izuku stared at his hand, letting one for all surge through his body. While he still had the predecessor's last gift, it was no longer transferable. Still, he would use it to save others. He will become a hero that helps others. 2 years later. And now, welcoming our graduating seniors of UA High, announced Nezu, standing behind a podium as the audience began to applaud loudly. Not to put down on the previous graduation ceremonies, but this one seemed even louder than the previous years, with a bigger attendance. In the crowd were several pro heroes, most of them in the top 10 rankings. In the crowd was Toshinori Yagi and Inko Yagi ni Midoriya, sitting there looking excited. The two had finally married, though it was a private marriage with just their friends. Sitting next to them was the Bakugo family, including Himiko, who had gotten permission to attend, though with Hawks and Best Jeanist next to them on standby. Though it was clear that therapy and tough Bakugo love was working wonders as the woman wasn't as hysterical as she was in the past. Muruko and Ryukyu stood in the crowd, next to Kaina, who still had her dark blue hair. Alongside was Night-Eye, Nejire, and Mirio, the latter of the two looking eager to see their Kohei graduate. The lurkers, Compass of Edge Shot, Mount Lady, Kamui Woods, and the newest addition to their group, Gentle Hero, were also in attendance, along with La Brava. The wild pussycats clapped as Kauta and Iri sat together, eager for one of the graduates. Even Gran Torino and Rikai were attending this particular graduation ceremony. In the international section stood Star and Stripe with her bros, as well as David Shield, Rhodey Soul, and his little siblings. At the hospital, Aizawa was sat in a hospital room with the now conscious Saburo Shirakumo, watching the whole thing on television. In a certain prison, Endeavor, now merely Enji, sat behind a glass panel to watch his son's graduation with Toya. Now for the graduating representative, Izuku Midoriya, announced Nezu. This garnered a lot of traction as the crowds cheered. Everybody knew Izuku, due to the significant role he played in the PLF rebellion. The man who made a difference upon his entry into it. The one who helped arrest Tenko and convinced him to come quietly. The one that a year after the rebellion that Toshinori openly revealed to the public that he was his apprentice, and his stepson. The student who helped countless others throughout his second and third year at UA, and was nominated as part of the next Big Three, or the Monstrous Trio as per their new title. Katsuki and Shoto were the other two members, but that didn't mean the other third-year students were that far behind them. I'm glad for everyone who could make time to attend today, began Izuku, slightly nervous but gaining confidence. A hero's work is never easy. It always seems like a dream that can never be fulfilled. But that's exactly why we fight for it. Dreams save us. They can lift us up and transform us to be better. To keep fighting for a world where hope can live. For those who feel like they are in a nightmare, don't lose sight of hope, no matter what. Keep it alive. We become greater than we suffer, and can become a symbol of hope to others. And with that, my last words, announced Izuku as he bent his knees. The first step towards that dream may be to just extend a hand out to others in need, no matter who you are. So don't hesitate and take that step. Izuku jumped into the air as an explosion blasted the wall apart, revealing Katsuki and Shoto, who were responsible for such firepower. As Izuku looked up to the sky to see the clear blue sky with the sun shining down, Izuku clenched his fist. This would be another step closer to becoming the hero he wanted to be. He glanced at his lovers, who were just as excited to graduate as were his friends. Though inside their eyes, he could see love. And a lot of pent-up lust. Looks like I'm not sleeping tonight, chuckled Izuku to himself. Good thing the devil fruit lets me be extremely flexible, and one for all ups my stamina, otherwise my back would be screaming at me. Izuku would walk towards the future with his lovers and friends, one step at a time, and extend their hands to whomever needed it. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining and thought-provoking, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what-if stories and other amazing videos coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep embracing the power of imagination.